boundaries in relationships. So you're putting in what behaviours you will and won't put up with.
So what's name some for you? What won't you put up with? Now, you've got two small
boundaries
children.
that I won't put up with would be, not just randomly going out whenever it suits you. Like, there's kids to think of. Don't just drop your children and expect to be able to go out whenever it suits you. Yes, have a life, but simply sit down and talk about it. Sit down and talk without the yelling and the screaming and the escalating arguments. Another boundary would be not swearing in front of each other's children, like, don't swear in front of my kids. Or he would to say, don't swear in front of mine. Like, there's that boundaries help with codependent families, big time.
Mm-hmm. How do you set a boundary up?
Saying what's right for me. So for me, how I would set a boundary up, with building my practice from home, is I need to schedule out time to work on my business. So a boundary for me would be from 9 till 2. That's my boundary time to work. I can't be interrupted. That's boundary time. And then I'll say from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock is my mum family time. So there's another boundary. That's my family time to be with my children, my partner. Not that I have one, but that's another boundary. That's our quality time. Okay.
And when you put these boundaries in place, how do they make you feel?
Solid. They make you feel solid and assertive and comfortable. Like, if you're in a relationship with a person and you've got the same sort of vision and he supports your career, you actually feel more confident in yourself as well, knowing that you have a person in your corner that supports these boundaries because it's important to you. Makes you feel, would make me feel a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable.
Right.
Because there's no pressure. Like, in my past relationship, there was always a lot of pressure with boundaries. Like, I couldn't put boundaries in place of what I needed and what was important to me.
Okay.
And hence, obviously, everything escalated and I wasn't living in line with what was important to me.
So the big question here then that listeners might be asking is, why couldn't you put a boundary in place then, but you can now? What's the difference?
The difference is knowing my self-worth.
Right, okay. So you didn't know your self-worth before, or you didn't have any, or...
Didn't know it. I lost it.
Right.
Because I fell completely out of in line with my values and into the mindset of any man will do and he's better than being alone.
Right, which is...
Hence the relationship was negative and narcissistic and controlling. Once I'd left, I'd realised I wasn't living in line with what's important to me in my career, and my passion around relationships is important to me. So now putting that self-worth in place and concreting that with boundaries out of being out of a negative environment really helps.
Brilliant.
So it stems down to knowing your self-worth and seeing yourself in a new light. You don't need anyone's permission to have a career. You don't need your man's permission to go out and study and have a career. Yes, talk to him about it and see, what do you think? What do you think I should do, and have that reflection conversation. But at the end of the day, if your career is important to you, then pursue that.
Very, very important. Thank you for that, Tasha. And that's an amazing step you've overcome, because I know so many people out there would rather be in any relationship than the fear of being alone. But it's taking that step, because when you take that step, it's only then that you can start building that self-worth, start discovering those values and start living in alignment with you. So until you take that step, while you are in a relationship that is not serving you, you will not be able to move forward. And so many women are in that place. So many women. I can remember my best friend, when her husband left her, the biggest fear was being alone. Absolutely being alone. She didn't really care who she was with. She just didn't want to be alone. And don't you find that so common?
Oh, absolutely, Louise. And that's a reflection on my past. Anyone would do. I just didn't want to be alone. Whereas once you're okay, like, you've got that okayness within yourself, and it's okay to be alone. Being alone and feeling lonely is two different things.
Totally, yeah. Should we just talk about that for a second, just so people understand?
So, being alone means you can do things alone. Like, you can raise children alone. You can go out and have a job on your own and be alone. having time out for yourself and being alone is healthy. It is nurturing time for you, whereas loneliness, so an example would be myself, the loneliness of comfort at night, not having someone to talk to and share what's been going on with my day, the loneliness of not having that intimacy in the bedroom, or that my love language is physical touch. So that's the feeling of loneliness. I don't have that hug, that feeling of someone being there, that comfort. So there's the difference of really feeling lonely to loneliness.
And so how can
being alone.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. I think that will really help the listeners to differentiate between those. So if you're feeling if you're feeling lonely, what can you do about that?
I journal.
Okay.
I journal how I feel, and I also meditate. So if I'm feeling lonely, I'll either write down and journal how I'm feeling and what's going on for me, or I'll sit and meditate.
Brilliant.
I'll just have my candles out and my amethyst stones, and I'll meditate.
Wonderful. So there's 2 great tips for you listeners out there if you're feeling lonely. Because in my experience with my business, I have met so many people who are actually lying next to their husband in bed, and they've never felt more lonely. So it is not about being with a person, with any man. It is all about the connection. So it doesn't matter if you're with someone or not with someone, you can still feel those awful moments of being lonely. Yep. And Tasha's just shared with you a couple of ways that really help her, because she does, as love language is physical, she does crave that physical touch, those hugs and that intimacy. So well done, and thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure that will help a lot of listeners out there, because I think
or even going out and getting a massage or getting your feet done, or something that feels comforting to you. So physical touch for me is my love language, so that's what I'll do. I'll go out and get my feet done or have a massage. It's quality time. So how would you feed your love language of quality time? Is it going out, spending time with friends or family or loved ones?
As we've just touched on the love languages here, there's some fantastic information out there by Gary Chapman. It's all online. There's a lot of free stuff if the listeners want to, really look into what your love language is. I believe Gary Chapman explains it beautifully. And there's also many books out there for children, for teenagers, for couples. There's an online test you can do online. There's a lot of information out there. So I just wanted to introduce that, Tash, in case people hadn't heard of love language. What is a love language? So go and look that up and learn a little bit more, because it is key in a relationship. And I think I did it once a while ago, and Ian and I found that I think ours was, if I remember rightly, quality time. We really like the quality time together. I mean, we all like all of them, don't we? It's just that one will be dominant.
One will be dominant.
Yeah.
And I touch base on that in my relationship rescue kit. There's a section in there where we actually do a quiz and discover your love language. So we all have one of the 5, but there's one dominant primary love language.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
The nutshell is people show love in different ways and feel love in different ways. So just because I don't actually say it doesn't mean that they're not showing it in different ways. So
true. So true. For instance, for me, my husband, he very rarely tells me he loves me. And, that I love to be told that, but I don't get it. But he would stay up. He'd work all night on my computer if he knew I needed it for the morning for work. Now, to me, that's love. He's showing an act of love. So, yes, you don't always get it how you want it, how you want it expressed, do you?
No. And a good friend of mine, she hardly ever says, I love you to her partner. She will do things for him, whether it be cooking nice dinners, baking cakes, cleaning the house. So hers is acts of service.
Right. Wonderful.
My kids' love language is quality time. I know when I'm not spending enough time with my children, they'll start acting out and rebelling because I'm not feeding their love language. I'm not spending enough quality time with them.
Brilliant. Thank you. So that's a wonderful thing, listeners, for you to really get to grips with and to understand, because you will really change your relationships when you understand your love language and the people who are important to you in your life. So I just want to come on to a question here. What have you learnt from seeing things from a man's perspective? What have you learnt around that, Tasha?
Oh, wow, that's huge, Louise. This one is really, really, really big. I've learnt to realise that not everything is about me, and to really step out of that it's all about me victimhood. Like, for an example, is taking ownership of my own behaviour was a huge one that I've learnt from seeing things from a man's perspective. You know, men don't think the way us women do either.
Mm-hmm. They were seriously created on Mars, weren't they?
Yeah, seriously. Yes, and realising that, you know, not everything is all about me. There's other areas and aspects going on with his life. It doesn't mean that I'm being rejected or abandoned. There's just other stuff going on for him. You know, and we talk about, you know, saying I love you. The words I love you to a man is completely interpreted completely different to them. So the words I love you to a woman, they love it, but to a man, that secretly fear to them is they think, you are trapped, or are you going to hurt me, or don't hurt me. So if you was to say to a man, I love you, that secretly can be interpreted as you are trapped, or don't hurt me, or do you love me, before he was ready to feel that. But if you were to flip that and say, I respect you, I admire you, I appreciate you, you inspire me, to men, and the biggest one is I respect you, that is huge to a man. Never underestimate saying that to a man, that you respect him, I admire you, I trust you. You inspire me. Those things to a man really hit him deeply. And the other key one is I believe in you. To a man, that's huge.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So that's absolutely key. That's it's very different to get into a man's shoes, hey?
Oh, yes, it is. It's actually very interesting too, though, really. But no, seeing things from a man's perspective has actually woken me up to see things on a whole new level with men. You know, you're not going to be able to meet a guy and try and change him. You're not going to be able to meet a guy and expect him to be on the pedestal. And understanding, and even as being a single parent myself, that it's not all about you. There's other things that can be going on in his life. You know, be okay with him having other people in his life. You don't own him. You're not his whole world, but you're just part of it. So I really would have an argument in a previous relationship of mine. I'd have an argument with my partner, and I would make it all about me. And I would blame him for my experiences and how I felt, rather than taking ownership for my part in anything.
And that's because it hurts us generally, would you say? Because it's painful to take ownership on something that's either triggered inside of us, or something that we've done wrong, or something that they've done, you know, that we've personalised. Yeah. Yeah, really, really good points. Really good points. So now you're dating, aren't you, Tasha? You're on are you dating right now, or are you thinking about it? You have got such a clear picture in your mind, haven't you? Completely different perspective from before, hey?
Yeah, totally. I'm sort of actively dating at the moment, kind of. Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Good.
Yeah, it's just a matter, I think, of really slowing things down and being curious to see where things go. Like, really slow stuff down and take things day by day, and bring a sense of curiosity into dating, rather than just jumping head over heels. Really be curious to see where things go. Bring a sense of curiosity into the dating scene.
And I love that word, curious. I think once we're curious in life, I think it opens up possibilities. It opens up opportunities.